So, if you've watched the video on prisms and cylinders, you'll see that this video is very similar to that. All of the formulas are very similar and it's pretty much the same process. So now you can see we still have area of a rectangle is still length times width, area of a triangle is still 1/2 base times height, area of a circle is still pi r squared. But now when you have a pyramid or a cone, instead of being capital B times h, it's 1/3 capital B times h. So everything else is exactly the same. Now we just have a 1/3 in front of it because it's a pyramid or a cone instead of a prism or a cylinder. So our first one here, we can see it's a square pyramid. So since it's a square pyramid, that means our base is a square, so all these sides are going to be the same, so they're all going to be 12. So capital B is just length times width, so 12 times 12 is 144. And then your height, now that's going to be the height from the middle of the base. If I go back, I didn't say this before. The height is the distance from the middle of the base to the apex, which means that common point at the top. So if I'm looking, here is the middle of the base, and it goes the whole way up to the top, that apex. That's going to be your height. So that is 10 inches. So volume is 1/3 capital B times h. So 1/3, 144 times 10. Now when you go to plug this into your calculator, how do you plug in 1/3? Well, in your calculator, just take parentheses 1 divided by 3 and end your parentheses. Now that's telling the calculator that that's a fraction, 1/3. And then you can just do times 144 times 10. And you should get 480. And don't forget your units, and since we're doing volume, it's in inches, not centimeters. Since we're doing volume, it's still going to be cubed. So it's going to be 480 inches cubed. So when you go to put the 1/3 in the calculator, just put parentheses 1 divided by 3. Now a cone, okay, still going to use the same formula, 1/3 capital B times h, but now capital B is going to be pi r squared because our base here is a circle. So I can see my radius is 22. So pi times 22 squared gives me 1,520.530,844. Okay, now the height. Remember, your height is from the middle of the base all the way to that apex, that common point. So 49 is going to be our height. This 54 is not necessary. It's on the outside, it's that slant, it's actually called the slant height, and we don't need that. We just need the actual height, which again goes from the middle of the base to the apex. So we don't need the 84 at all. So now volume, 1/3 times that 1,520, and again that's using calculator pi, not 3.14, but you can use 3.14 if you want, times our height, which is 49. When you plug all that into the calculator, you should get 24,835.3, and then that's going to be cubic yards, or yards cubed. So again, just like with the prisms and the cylinders, it's the same thing, only now we have a 1/3 in front of it. Now here we have a rectangular pyramid instead of the square pyramid before, but again, we're not changing anything. Capital B is still length times width, so our rectangle here is 12 times 10, which is 120. And our height, now again, we have to pick the correct height. Remember, from the middle of the base up to the top apex, that's your height. So it's going to be 16. This 17 out here, not used. So our volume is 1/3 capital B times H. So it's 1/3 times 120 times 16. And that's going to give us 640 cubic yards. Sorry, that 3's going off the page a little bit there. Let me write it so you can see it. There you go. So here's a cone again. So B is again pi r squared. Now, in this case, they don't give us the radius, they give us the diameter. So to find the radius, I have to cut this in half. So that's going to be 12.5 for our radius. So pi times 12.5 squared. And that's going to be 490 and a bunch of decimals afterwards. And then our height, again from the middle of the base to that top apex, our height will be 47. So volume is 1/3 times that 490 and all the decimals. And again, this is using calculator pi. Times 47. And so that's going to give you 7,690.4 cubic millimeters, or millimeters cubed. And the last one here is a triangular pyramid, a right triangular pyramid, and we haven't done these yet, and these get kind of tricky. And you'll see when you get to the worksheets that you do, the reviews, there's some triangle pyramids or triangle prisms where they have some extra numbers put everywhere. So remember, you could have numbers in your problem that you don't need. Like you maybe would have the length of this that you don't need, or maybe have the length of that you don't need. So make sure you're only using the numbers that you need. Just focus on those. You don't need everything sometimes. So our base of the pyramid is a triangle, so that means we're going to use 1/2 base times height. So for our right triangle down here, here's my base, and there's the height, just like the triangles that you'd been finding the area of on your last test. So it's going to be 1/2 8 times 14, and that's going to be 56. Then your height, again, is from the middle of the base up to the top apex, so your height is 17. So my volume will be 1/3 capital B times H, so 1/3 56 times 17, and you get 317.3. And there is no units here, so you don't need to write units for this one. I forgot to write units in there, so you don't have to worry about it. So the triangle ones get sometimes a little tricky, so if you're having trouble with any of them, just ask questions and I will help you through them. There's plenty of practice after these notes for you to be able to try.